As far back as I can remember, drugs played a big part of my life. I was raised by a single mother, and I'm the oldest of 6 children. Growing up being raised by a single parent was hard enough, but when you add the fact that my mom was a drug addict, it gets more complicated. It wasn't until I was 10 or 11 that I really began to understand what was going on around me. I always knew something wasn't right with the way my mom was. Not until my brother and I started coming across the drugs and drug paraphernalia did I realize that my mom did meth. CPS always was knocking at our door, asking my brother and I questions about my mom, and a few times taking pictures of us in our filthy house. Dealing with this for so long, I became cold-hearted and bitter towards my mom. I didn't meet my father until I was 8 years old. He would come around every once in a while. He did drugs as well. I don't remember him doing much for me except by his absence. Only made me yearn for a male's attention that much more. I didn't rebel through partying, I rebelled through men. What attention I didn't receive from my father, I made sure to get it from men. I had always seen guys in and out of my mom's house, so to me it became normal. To my way of thinking, at least I don't do drugs. I used to say to myself, I'm never going to do drugs, but one day in the 12th grade, all that changed. I tried meth for the first time with a friend in my high school bathroom, and 2 weeks later I dropped out. After that, meth consumed my life for the next 5 years. I did anything and everything to get high. At the age of 23, I had my first son. His dad and I had been together for a while, but when he found out I was pregnant, he told me he didn't want another child. So there I was, a single mom. Shortly after I had Caden, I started using meth again. While partying, I met the man who is now my husband. When my son Caden was a year old, CPS knocked at my door. They informed me a neighbor had called and was worried about my drug habit and the way I was raising my son. For me, this only brought back horrible memories of my childhood. I couldn't help but notice that I was becoming a cliche. I told my husband I wanted to get sober, but in order to do so, I had to leave California. So we decided to move back to Kansas where his family lived. Everything was going good in Kansas, and at the age of 25, I found out I was pregnant with my second son, Austin. Soon after I had him, I went back to my old ways. Soon after, CPS came to our home again. This time they took both of my children, and my husband went to jail. I had nowhere to go out in Kansas, so I came back to California. The loss of my children made me feel so empty. To fill the void, I went right back to my old ways and patterns of using drugs. About 3 months later, my husband got out of jail and flew out to California. We knew our children needed us. This life that we had been living is exactly what I never wanted for myself nor my children. So we went back to Kansas, got sober, did all the requirements for CPS, and got our children back within 5 months. Losing my children for me was my rock bottom. After we got them back, never again did I want to use, and to this day I still haven't. Shortly after we got the kids back, my husband found a job working for a farmer in Garden City, Kansas. They built a brand new house for us, and everything in my life was going great. I was 4 months pregnant with my third son, Caleb, when my husband got injured at work. So on July 5th, 2011, he had a doctor's appointment. That morning, I thought everything was fine. My husband kissed me goodbye and promised he would be back later that night. Little did I know he had other things on his agenda. That was the beginning of his relapse and the end of our marriage. I never heard from him again. When he hadn't shown up for work in days, his employers informed me I had 30 days to be out of the house. It all happened so fast that I didn't even have time to process that my husband was gone. I didn't let the pain of him abandoning us allow me to go use. I stayed strong, only to figure out what my next move was. After giving away everything we owned, I headed back to San Diego. I knew my mom was living at the San Diego Rescue Mission. I saw this as an opportunity to become closer to her and to have a place to stay. So I came and filled out an application, and 2 months later I got in. When I walked in the front lobby on October 12, 2011, I was welcomed with open arms. I was known as Cammie's daughter, but that was okay. It wasn't until I came to the rescue mission that I actually began to see the change in my mom. She was sober, and best of all, she had God in her life. My mom and I have become very close. I'm able to talk to her and to share my feelings, and for the first time, I've been able to look up to her. I've forgiven my mom for the past and respect the role she plays in my life now. I can now say that I truly believe Romans 8:28, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purposes. This verse confirms that all the stuff that I have been through this past year was all to bring me closer to God and to my mom. But my mom wasn't the only one who has done some changing. My time here at the rescue mission has not been easy, and at times I thought there was no way I'm going to make it. The hardest thing I've had to go through is being a single mother to 3 boys. Trying to be a mom and doing stuff their dad is supposed to do has been a real challenge. But Peter assures us in 1 Peter 4:12 that problems are normal, saying, "Don't be bewildered or surprised when you go through the fiery trials ahead, for this is no strange, unusual thing that is going to happen to you." I've learned a lot this past year too. A few of the things I've learned is to rely on God more. For example, trusting in God when I don't understand what or why something is happening. For instance, He took away my husband, a relationship that pulled me away from God so that He could bring me back to California and restore my family and my relationship with Him. Also, that I must be obedient and remain in prayer. Another thing I've learned is that God's love for me is so much more tangible than I ever realized. For example, seeing my sons praise Jesus in church and at Awanas. Lastly, the love that He pours out to me through His Holy Spirit and through the people around me. For example, like a profound or encouraging word when I'm having a hard day. I'd like to close with this verse, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16 through 18. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. I like this verse. I've come to rely on it when I'm going through a tough time. It reminds me that my troubles are only temporary. Amen.